This is the OMFL.
You can't touch this.
And you're in the mix with Kinda Real Nate. Here's another OMFL production.
Good morning and welcome to Press Pass Live, your weekly podcast show for the OMFL. I'm your host, Kinda Real Nate, and joining me today is our good buddy Dawson. Dawson, how you doing on a Sunday morning, buddy?
Pretty good so far.
Yeah, it's still bright and early. A lot of football ready to go here, but before we get into the NFL pregame, some of us are still licking our wounds from the college game yesterday. Let's talk some OMFL, man. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Unfortunately, our buddy Dwayne is working nights, and so he couldn't be with us. And then Mr. Maniac stayed up like a maniac until 3 in the morning playing some games, and so he couldn't get up and out of bed and join us. But we're here, and we're going to jump right into it. Let's talk about our games from last week, weeks 10, 11, or 12. I think we're actually going to be out of 13 here tonight. So I'll even throw in 13 if there is something there that you want to talk about. But what's a game that happened over the last couple of weeks that you'd like to just talk about, something caught your eye and something that looked good?
Yeah, I'll show some love to the NFC North this week. My game of the week is Week 11 matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears ended up winning 26-15 over the Vikings. Vikings, they pretty much led that division all year, but pretty much the rest of the NFC owners, they're still technically in the division hunt. So it's just a matter of getting upsetting Vikings going throughout the season or the rest of the season. It was a defensive game for sure. Outlaw and his Bears came out on top, like I said, 26-15, and Outlaw ended up with 4 takeaways and 2 sacks in that game, and one of those interceptions was made by the rookie middle linebacker Roquan Smith. So I bet Outlaw was pretty happy about that. Getting his rookie those interceptions. Sticking with the Bears, Trubisky, he didn't really have a good game at all. He was 65 passing yards, but he did end up getting the win, and he didn't throw any interceptions. So that's my so that's good in my book for now. The stats wasn't good, but he did get that main stat that was that's the most important, the win-loss stat. Tarek Cohen, he led both teams in rushing, 13 rushes for 106 yards and a touchdown. So that was a pretty solid night for him. I didn't really watch this game, so I'm not really sure what was called on defense, but Duvall and his Vikings had a total of 8 sacks that game. So not sure if it was just mainly coverage sacks or if it was Duvall kind of mixing it up with his blitzes and just timing it right. Both quarterbacks didn't have good games at all. Kirk Cousins, he did pass a little bit better, but I should say passing yards, he passed more. He went 20 for 38, 262 passing yards, no touchdown passes, and he threw for 4 interceptions. So not a good game for quarterbacks this week. It was more of a defensive battle on the ground, and in the OMFL you can't never underestimate guys. And Outlaw could pull the win and kept his playoff hopes alive for at least another week.
Yep. It's funny because, like you were saying, the Vikings dominated this game outside of rushing yards and turnovers. And that, at the end of the day, is 2 of the bigger stats that you can have. Clearly, Maniac was able to control the clock. That forced Minnesota to have to pass a lot. And yeah, it's a massive win for Outlaw and his Vikings. Look, Outlaw and the Bears, the Vikings are still very much in control of this division and in the hunt to make a pretty deep run. I'm going to go to week number 12. I think it was 12. I forget this morning already, and actually do something that I rarely do, and I'm going to pick my game against the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints come away with a 30-24 victory, and the reason is this was an instant classic game of the week. You also had one. I think you submitted it. I just haven't been able to look at it and look it over and get it at it. But you and I both had some really great games. The Atlanta Falcons are, in my opinion, the top team in the NFC, and a team that's been a thorn in my side since Dwayne had them in Madden 17. I only beat them twice out of like 12 tries over the last 2 years or whatever it's been. It's just a tough team to beat, and then D Money takes them over, and he's just as good. I mean, he's one of the top players here, no matter what team he has. And then you give him one of these really powerful teams, and he's really good. But he and I had just a back and a forth. This is one of those just great games. The Atlanta Falcons had 3 sacks on the day, but they allowed 365 passing yards from the New Orleans Saints. But the Saints had allowed 119 rushing yards. That's something that the Falcons do exceptionally well, is run the ball really good. A lot of penalties this game, 4 for the Saints, 4 for the Atlanta Falcons, and then each team had 2 turnovers. You can see here Matt Ryan struggled on the day, 11 of 17, 157, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. We'll talk about one of those here in just a little bit. But Drew Brees, 22 of 30, 383 yards, a touchdown and an interception. The last 3 or 4 weeks, Drew Brees has been on complete fire, passing over 300 yards of 3 of the last 4 games. Alvin Kamara didn't play well at all, 15 for 59. He did get in the end zone, but it was actually Mark Ingram who was super excited about having back. Only 11 carries for 3 yards, no touchdowns. He struggled. On the other side, though, Devontae Freeman had his way. 10 carries, 93 yards. Coleman had 10 carries, only 32 yards. I was surprised that he didn't continue to feed Freeman. Freeman was really having his way with my defense. Receiving, I picked up a kid, Marquez Valdez-Scantling from Priest and his Packers early in the preseason for I think I gave him like a 3rd round pick or his 4th round pick. This kid has size, he has speed, he has hands. He is my new Forbes, and he had to step up and get a starting role when Thomas went down for a long time. This was Thomas's first game back, and Scantling has been absolutely lights out for me. He comes away with 10 receptions, 188 yards. Thomas throws in another 5 for 119 and a touchdown, and those 2 guys really won this game for us. This game went back and forth. The Saints had under 2 minutes to go, down 3. They make a drive. They get it all the way down to the 1-yard line. The Falcons' defense steps up, pushes them back with 2 big sacks. So it was 3rd and 24. 3rd and goal from the 24-yard line. They hold the Saints. Saints kick a field goal. Goes into overtime. First play of overtime. Matty Ice finds a receiver off to the left, but throws a bullet pass, low trajectory, picked off by the linebacker, taken back, pick 6, game over. Saints win 30-24. It just becomes one of those instant classic battles back and forth between 2 division rivals. So that was my game of the week. It just was a really fun game. You also had a really close game that was a really good game that we're going to make sure that we add to the list of games that we have. If you guys don't know, we do have a list of games from the past, I think, 3 years that are there. They're just instant classic games with YouTube threads and little descriptions. You should go check those out. So some good games all the way up here to week 13. And it's hard to believe, but we're going to be in the playoffs here in the next, 6 days or something. Let's talk about our teams on the bubble. The AFC and the NFC playoff races are coming down to the wire. Are you back? Did I lose you for a second?
Yeah, yes. Apologize for
No,
that. I'm
you're
back
good.
now.
I was like, I asked you a question. It was like radio silence. I'm like, all right, he either died, fell asleep, or he walked away. But
Sorry, my
uh,
dog's barking and just trying to keep her to shut up.
no, you're good. So the playoff, I was just commenting about how we're going to be in the playoffs here in the next 6 days or so, and the playoff races are heating up, especially in the NFC, where the Seahawks have stepped up to the plate and shown that they are the men of the hour. They've taken back control of the NFC. The AFC races are really, really tight with the Bengals and Patriots beginning to win more and more games. But I want to talk about our teams that are on the bubble. So in the NFC, we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-5, the Detroit Lions at 6-6, the Dallas Cowboys at 5-7, the Packers at 5-6. I'm even going to throw my Saints in there at 7-3 or 7-5. I'm sorry. In the AFC, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars at 7-5, the Tennessee Titans at 8-4, the Los Angeles Chargers at 7-5, the Denver Broncos at 5-7, and the Baltimore Ravens at 5-7. These are our teams that are on the bubble, still mathematically in it, and still have an opportunity. But who do you think makes it into the playoffs on those teams that are on the bubble?
Yeah, I'll start with AFC, and I kind of have a smaller list as far as the bowl teams. I just have Jaguars, Chargers, Titans, and Texans. So I did kind of miss out the Steelers, Ravens, and Broncos. I feel like they're more or less in the back spot seat. Something drastically has to happen in the next few weeks for if either the Titans, Chargers, and Jaguars to lose out for those teams to come out on top, which is realistically it could happen. But I'm going to keep it a little short here. I'm going to go with those four teams: Jags, Chargers, Titans, Texans is my bubble team. We pretty much have kind of divisions locked up right now. The Bengals got the North, Colts right now got the South, Raiders pretty much locked up the West, and then you got the Patriots pretty much locking up the East. And next week, week 14 is going to be really a good week of games on AFC and NFC. For AFC South, pretty much because you got the Colts and Texans facing off. And can the Colts get revenge from earlier in the season and lock up that division, or do the Texans just fight their way back and own that top spot and grab that division away from the Colts? Then you got the Jags and Titans play in Week 14. Both are fighting for a playoff spot, so whoever wins that will be in the driver's seat. So interesting games come next week in Week 14. Based off just looking at the four teams or the rest of the schedule for the four teams, I do have the Jags getting one of those wild card spots, and the Chargers. I know he's been on a downward spiral the last few weeks, and I believe some of those games were sims, or he was out of town and the opponent got to play the computer, stuff like that. I won't count him out just yet, basically because pretty much because we know he can play. Last season he started with the Jets, then he ended up with the Cardinals, and he both competed in both those teams. If he can pull this Week 14 upset over the Bengals and stay consistent the last few weeks, then Chargers can at least go be in the hunt and could be in the front seat on getting that last wild card spot. And right at this time, I do have them getting that last wild card spot in the AFC. With that being said, if it was a reverse and the Titans and Texans get in, I wouldn't be surprised because all four of these teams are locked in, and it's going to take one mistake or one lost game that's going to change the whole playoff seeding of those last four teams. You may go off the NFC now, or
Yeah, let's talk about the NFC.
Yeah. Now the NFC is a little bit shorter list. Like I said, I didn't really have the Cowboys, Bears in there. You might even add the Eagles at this time, but kind of like the Steelers, Ravens, Broncos in the AFC, they're kind of in the back seat of the van, just hoping that the teams ahead of them kind of make a mistake. But my bowl teams are the Saints, the Bucks. And you might can even throw the Lions in. He did get a loss last night, and the Packers. Both of them are still consistent, can get that 10-win game in the season. So anything can happen as far as that. And going off the divisions, you got the Vikings right now, got the North, and then you got the Falcons in the South. And right now, you got the 49ers in the West and the Giants in the East at the moment. But Giants can't. They get ahead and they kind of take a step backwards and to kind of keep some of us the East teams back in the hunt. And right now, it's the Eagles and Cowboys pretty much got a chance to compete for that. East is not really locked down as much as the North or the West or South. With that being said, the Seahawks, they've both been playing. Seahawks and 49ers have been playing really good ball this season. So that's going to take out one wild card spot. And so it's going to leave just one wild card spot for pretty much two teams, the Saints and the Bucks. And not to jinx anything or anything, but Week 14 is a big matchups because the Saints and Bucks do play, and both teams are on fire right now. Both teams, I know the Saints, they kind of been consistent all throughout the season. Bucks, they start off slow, but then now they're on fire. They finally get that run game. I know last podcast we was talking about him not rushing at least 5 touchdowns. I think he already has that. He had 3 against me that night, so still kind of hurts on that end. But with that being said, I'm going to go the easy way out, and I'm just going to say the winner of the Week 14 matchup out of the Saints and Bucks will be in the driver's seat for that last wildcard spot, and then that will seal up the NFC playoff seeding.
Yeah, that'll be a pivotal matchup, and a lot of pressure on me now to figure out how I'm gonna win that game. But when I look at the here's the first thing I'll say. The crazy thing about all of this is usually you can be a 500 team and sneak in and maybe grab that last wild card spot. Usually there's a lot more parity in the league, and this year we're not. We're very top heavy in the league, and our bottom teams or the gap there is pretty large. We don't have a lot of teams kind of in that middle, and there's a very good chance that on both the AFC and the NFC that you may have a 10-win team not make it in, and that's crazy. And to think that minimum to even have an opportunity, you have to be a 9 or 10-win team is really, really crazy. That if you're at 500, there's absolutely no chance that you're going to make the playoffs this year. In the AFC, I don't want to repeat a bunch of stuff you said because you hit the nail on the head. I like the Tennessee Titans, though, to get in over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just think that team just is playing really good defense. He's been pretty steady. Jacksonville, I think, is still not winning games in his own style. What I mean by that is he's a run-first defensive team, and I think so far this Madden, he's been forced to be more of a passer, and that if you don't win, he's winning games, but if you don't win with your play style, it's going to be hard to make the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs. In the NFC, I like the Tampa Bay Bucks, like you said. I think that both the AFC and the NFC is almost completely sealed up, but there are a few little spots that people are still feeling and fighting for, and I think that the Saints and Bucks are both like right there in the driver's seat right now. Can't count out the Lions. They've won some big games lately, but I just think the Tampa Bay defense is going to be really, really good. They swarm the ball. That running game has been found. I really don't play Maniac well at all, and I have a hard time matching up against him. And so I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to take over that matchup, and that they will. That's going to be that pivotal matchup that's going to decide who gets into the playoffs and who doesn't. And I think by the time we have our next podcast, we either will be right on the cusp of getting into the playoffs or maybe just have started the playoffs. Yeah, Smash, a little morning press pass live. Thanks for tuning in and being on the show with us. So a lot of really, really good things and some good games that are lining up as we get down the stretch. I love how the NFL sets up those divisional matchups here at the end of the season, and over the next 3 weeks, man, we're going to see some really great games, some division rivalries, probably some snow games, some bad weather games, some wind games. It's going to be one of those really great times here in the OMFL where there are some instant classic games that we can go back and check out and watch. talking about how the league feels a little more top heavy than normal, I kind of want to turn our attention to the other end of the spectrum and talk about the teams that are at the bottom half of the league. So I'm talking about the Miami Dolphins at 1-11, which is a complete shock to me. The Buffalo Bills at 2-10, the Carolina Panthers at 2-10, another complete shock on both those teams. The Cleveland Browns at 2-9. Didn't think they would struggle this bad. The Arizona Cardinals at 3-8. The Kansas City Chiefs at 3-8. The Los Angeles Rams at 3-7. Your Redskins, another complete shock at 4-8. The Jets at 4-8. The Broncos at 5-7. The Bears at 5-7, even though they've had some big wins lately. The Ravens at 5-7, even though they've started to figure some things out with that defense. The Cowboys at 5-7. The Eagles at 5-7. The Steelers at 5-7. The Packers at 5-6. Those are kind of the teams that are struggling, especially your 4-8 teams and below. So the Jets all the way down to the Miami Dolphins. As we kind of think about these bottom tier teams, especially let's talk about like kind of those bottom five, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Panthers, the Bills, the Dolphins. We could even throw in the Chiefs and the Rams, even though the Rams, I think, are a much better team than their record shows. What would it take to turn those teams around, and kind of which team, what's the one team that you think next season will completely flip their record and be a much better team in season 81?
Yeah, like you said, this season has been like the disparity of the teams has been really wide open. I think I remember last season or last cycle, I made the playoffs being 9-7, and a few other teams here and there as well. So this is it's not going to be the case this season. I think, and more so on the AFC than the NFC side. But as we learned last cycle, it kind of changed, progressively changed from seasons 1-3 to 3-6. So, my Redskins, we haven't been doing so hot recently. I think I started out pretty good, and then kind of lost like 5 or 6 straight, and then I won a game, then I lost one, and now here I'm at 4-8. So. I'm not really sure exactly. I guess my running back Geis, he got hurt.
You got it right.
Yeah, he got hurt, so that kind of took out my running game, and my offensive line is just terrible. So I'm not sure what to do going in the off season when everybody's lineman is terrible, and they're going to be fighting for those draft linemen in the draft or even in the free agency. So I have to try to pull out some trades or do something, but that's long term, or that's a couple weeks from now. Going back to the by the end of the season, you might even consider the Redskins as the bottom tier of those last 5 teams, and not to knock anybody. No, that's already on the bottom 5, because we know all these guys can compete and they have competed in the past. It's just a matter of do they have the team that they are comfortable with on playing. Kevin is Dolphins. He made. Did he make the Super Bowl last cycle, or was it the AFC Championship? I think it was just AFC Championship.
Yeah, he had some nice playoff runs last year.
Yeah, so we know he can compete, and once he gets that team going, I'm not sure if he's a Tannehill fan or not. He is a Dolphins fan in real life, so he might be. So he's going to at least either try to progress him or look for a replacement going forward. Maybe even look at. I know he always, myself including, is always talking about the offensive line and himself and Kevin. Maybe his offensive line is worse than the Redskins. But with that being said, I do see him, being a competitor next season. Bills as well. He's always in the mix. He's always competing. I think it was a few games short from getting that division last cycle, the last season of last cycle. Panthers, not really sure what's happening right here. I know Colin. I know he can compete because he beat me many times before. Not really sure what he's going for on here. I know he's in love with his receiver like everybody else, DJ Moore. But I'm not sure. Maybe he just had a few bad games here and there and just didn't go his way. Browns, okay. Once he gets his team built, his defense built, he's going to be a tough competitor. We've seen that last cycle where he was just a few games away from playoffs. But if he can ever get this offense clicking, which he might can with Baker Mayfield, then he will be I guess a contender in the AFC going forward. And Cardinals, I haven't heard much about him, but I think he was a past owner, so maybe you can add more to this. But I think he can, once he gets Rosen in, start getting him I guess his weapons for Rosen, and get that defense built, then he should be able to compete over in the West. And then we might can see even going forward and competing against Seahawks and even the 49ers for that division title. For the Rams, he has two ties of the season, so those could easily be wins and make them 5-7. So he could be in that, I guess, middle section of the league at the moment. He does have a team that can win now. So I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at the contracts or anything like that. So I'm not sure who's going off the board, who he needs to resign or what. But I know there's a lot of star veterans that are needing to resign. So that's going to be his job, and not sure exactly what his plan going forward. But I still can see, realistically, I can see all these compete because we can always in real life, in NFL, there's always those playoff teams that just come up out of the woodwork and make the playoffs and didn't do anything last year, and that could simply be us as well in the OMFL. If I had to pick one team, I'm going to go with the Panthers just because I know they can compete. They have the quarterback. I think he took a few key injuries on defense. Kuechly got hurt, and even his import linebacker got hurt. So that might be was the cause of those 10 losses or some of those 10 losses. But if I had to say anything, I would say the Panthers will be on rebound come next season and will compete for that NFC South.
Yeah, look, I think that when we talk about the Bills for sure, the Browns, the Cardinals, you could maybe put in the Dolphins there. The Dolphins are a little bit kind of on the cusp of that, but those three teams for sure just have a roster issue, right? There isn't a lot of talent on that roster, and they're going to need to really up their talent and up the talent that they have on that roster from the skilled positions. The other teams have it, and they've just either had a rough season or they've just not been themselves. But I expect the Rams to turn things around. I mean, he's already shown it. He had 2 ties against some very good teams, one of which was the Seattle Seahawks. You're talking about the Browns, who have a talented quarterback. He's a rookie. He's going to have to get better. I think the one team, though, when I think about who can really, really turn things around, would have to be the Carolina Panthers. At least that's where my brain goes whenever I start to think about who can turn things around. That team has a lot of talent, and he just has had a lot of injuries this year. Whether it's the import that he had that got hurt, he's got a really great running back. He's got a really great receiver. Of course, he's got Cam Newton still. That defense still swarms to the ball and makes plays. I mean, this is a really, really good team, and they're going to be able to really turn things around pretty quickly. I mean, I expect him to be that number 2 team there in the NFC South. He would make the NFC South one of those like top tier divisions as it was when Dwayne was there, and all these, Tanner was there, Colin was still playing extremely well, making the playoffs every year. This division has that opportunity again if the Carolina Panthers can just flip the script, and in my opinion, that's what's going to happen here. Last Madden, he did the same thing. He had a bad season or two, but as soon as he was able to put the pieces together and put them all in place, things turned around so very quickly for him, and he was contending every single year for playoff races and in the NFC South to be that top team. And I expect the Carolina Panthers to be able to do that again and kind of take the lead there. So that's kind of your update here for the OMFL up to week number 12. I want to get to our owner-submitted questions. We don't have a ton. There's still one that I do want to continue to save when we talk about the draft. I just think that I want to have all the guys here. I want to allow everybody to give their opportunities about the draft. We are doing a couple of different custom draft classes over the next couple of seasons, and just super, super excited about that. The rosters are already set to match what we have already in the game, and it should be really, really, really good. So I'm going to save that question, but Mr. Outlaw had a question for us. I'm going to read it to you. He says, we have some of the best coaches here who are great at running the ball. Having a defense staying in the game also helps. Any tips on how to run certain plays, what buttons to use and what not to use, formations, etc.? How do some have so much success? So I guess this really question is on the offensive side of the ball is how do you find better success in the run game? I know that you're a run-first player and a guy who has a really good team. Now, you're going to have to build that offensive line as you kind of talked about earlier, but I think overall you have an extremely good run game in Geis, and he's a young player who's going to be able to come in and make some plays for you. But what is kind of some tips or some tricks that you use in the run game?
Yeah, this might be a better question for Dakota when he's on because he can actually run.
He's a monster.
I can. I am a run first team just because I like to stay. I guess keep the defense honest, and I'm not very good at reading the passes all the time. I can read those easy ones, but then when you start getting deep and then having to watch out for the defensive ends, I just get sacked or throw picks. So in the long run, I stick with the run because I just like it. I do as far as the plays. I try to do the inside plays. I'm not really sure any tips that I do because I think I just kind of run the ball, and sometimes it doesn't go my way just because my line they just get beat, get pushed back behind the line of scrimmage, and then it's a disaster. And then when I try to do outside runs, sometimes the defenses or in wide formations, or the linebackers are so fast that they can react and make those plays and can get any separation or anything like that. I felt like I was doing a little bit better with Geis, but then he got hurt middle of the season. I do get him back, I think, in week 15, 16, so I'm hoping I can kind of practice on that and get ready for season 2 or season 81. And then, but I really don't know. I mean, I just kind of know hope for it and just kind of run it. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I know sometimes a lot of people they like say, "Oh, well, you can't run because these defensive tackles or the line and everything." But then when you watch games with like Dakota or even with Brady or any other the power runs, you can see that they're running for like 100, 150 yards. And I was like, how is that possible? And because some of my guys, I think I got over 100 yards against the Cowboys, but that was with 2 running backs. And then I can't remember what I had last night with the Eagles. It wasn't very much. I know that. Because right now, even if you do look at my stats, I got Chris Thompson right now. He's kind of the leading back now. He's 105 attempts off 442 rushing yards, which he's averaging 4.2 yards. So that's actually pretty good. So I'm just now looking at that. So maybe I need to just stick to the running, and I think that's a lot of owners' problems is when you do get tackled for a 2-yard loss. Well, it's time to pass the ball, and maybe it's just kind of staying consistent and relying on your defense or relying on your offense, the running backs, and so yeah, I really I would like to hear your opinion on this as well as even Dakota's on exactly. He even told me what he does, but it's just the way he tells me is so simple. But then when you start the game, it's not simple. So I really don't know. In the long run, and to answer the question, there's really no tips that I have to give, except just staying consistent and staying on your game plan. As far as if you're a power runs, stick to the runs. And hope for the best coming into that third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest tip is that you do need to stick with it, right? You just need to have a game plan. You need to kind of stick with it. When you think about running, though, I guess my question to you would be like, what is your strategy? Like, what is there an area that you kind of do you try to establish the inside? Do you like to push guys to the outside? Do you like speed? Do you like power? Like, what's kind of your strategy around that?
Well, first off, let me say I am 4-8. But my game plan is to stick to the inside. I do like to run those power runs. A lot of guys like to spread the field and stop those outside runs. So it's always a good feeling when you can run gash those, in the inside runs, 10 or 8 to 10 yards, and get that first down. But when you see guys start loading the box up, that's when maybe it's just me overthinking it. When I see, oh, these guys are loading the box up, maybe I should do an outside run. But then my left tackle, which is Trent Williams, which is like a superstar tackle, he can't block anybody, and he just those defensive ends shred the blocks, and just I get sacked, get tackled and behind the line. So my game plan starting out is just consistently stick to the run. But when you start getting down by 14, by 2 touchdowns, even a touchdown late in the game, you kind of I kind of put that in the no, I guess to try to focus, and I'll just try to get in the win mode, and that's when it starts. I try to pass and everything. That I guess it's my flaw on that end. But as far as running and formations, I kind of try to vary it up and just trying to change it up. I am doing a little bit more. I guess you say shotgun runs, because I think at one point I didn't call shotgun runs at all. But but calling shotgun runs, it keeps the defense honest, because when you go shotgun, all the defense is just going to do is going to set the defense is back, and they're just going to play zone and going to rush 3. Well, it gives the benefit. It keeps the defense honest as far as not constantly calling zone when there's a shotgun play. You got to change it up, mix it up. Now, not consistently mix it up or constantly calling shotgun runs. That's not FPR, but just to keep the defense honest, and I guess trying to mix things up as far as my end.
Yeah, I think the number one tip is what you said. You have to, again, I'm not a top rushing team, and I've had too many injuries to be able to do that, but I feel like my team is getting back together. In Madden 19, I do like the power back in the power run. I think for me and for my team, I play better whenever I can establish the run, and now my play action works better off of that. Everything, my pass game, I feel like I'm a much better passer than I am a runner, but establishing that run game is so important. The Saints offensive line is so underrated, and they're not good on this game, but still trying to figure out how to establish that run, make sure that my team is playing power football, because I think power football still wins, and it sets up everything else. And you can really control a game whenever you're controlling the clock, and whenever you are establishing the run and playing your style, and not letting, establishing the tempo and controlling the flow of the game through the run game. I like to establish the power run. I like to establish stuff between the tackles, and then off of that, whenever they begin to stack those boxes and bring people in, now you're trying to get to the outside. Now you're using those tosses, those sweeps. I actually don't like the toss. There's a weird animation that just takes a long time. I like the sweeps. I like the counters. I like the stretch plays. The stretch plays is one of my favorite plays. When it comes to the run game, about tips and tricks, I think it is simple. When you're power running, you need to lay off the speed burst. You can't touch that speed burst. You need to just use your analog stick. Wait till you get through the hole, through the line, and then bam, you hit that speed burst and you take off. I think another tip and trick is when you're on those tosses, sweeps, stretches, counters, double tapping your speed burst. And so, quickly tapping and then quickly tapping and holding the second time is the only real way to be able to keep your speed and your control the way that you want it. So having the double tap, the thing about the double tap though is going to be that's going to take your player, you're going to have little control over your player. And so when you hit that, it needs to be because you have a hole, you have a clear direction, you have a clear way of where you're going to go. You're going to double tap that speed burst and take off. But in my opinion, I love to establish that power run game, make sure that I'm able to control the tempo, control the flow of the game, and now play action's working off better on that. I'm able to establish, you can start spreading them out. I don't do a lot of shotgun runs. Maybe I should do them more. I just have such a guttural reaction to them that I stay away from them. But I agree that there's a lot of ways to set it up, but the number one thing is stay consistent, and number two thing is lay off that speed burst button. You really need to learn how to break yourself of that. because in this game, and I love that, this game, you can't just smash the speed burst button. So that's really our only owner-submitted question that we had this go-around, and that's going to bring us to our outside the league segment, and this is our leagues that are here in the OMFL. I'm sorry, in the grown folks community or other Madden leagues. I can't seem to talk today. It's too early in the morning, no coffee. I seem so out of it. But we have the NBC, we have the TFL, and we have the OMFL too. And we like to just do a little quick update of all of those leagues each and every week. And the TFL, that says the Rams are currently 10-0 and rolling along. They are undefeated. Such a talented team outside of the box. If you put a talented owner with them, they're going to take off. Our guy, Crazy, he's got things figured out. I know his record doesn't show it, but I truly believe in that team. He's going to get things turned around. In the TFL, the Steelers are also 8-1, and they're the top two teams in the NFC and AFC, respectively, in the TFL. Statistically, the quarterback class has been led by rookie Sam Darnold, who has just under 2,000 passing yards, and Andrew Luck and Dak Prescott are close behind the rookie. The playoff races are starting to heat up in the TFL. Other than the Steelers and the Rams, who are kind of in control and dominating those races, the rest of the races are very close and are wide open to just about anyone to take the win there. In the OMFL 2, Chaotic tells us that they are in week 8. I know that they've had some guys that have decided if it's for them or not for them. That always happens in every Madden. Guys join and then they unjoin and blah, blah, blah. The biggest thing that we've kind of seen is that the OMFL guys who are playing the OMFL 2 have struggled with that transition. Look, Chaotic is working crazy hours, and look, it's not the same league, and it's not fair to kind of hold Chaotic to the same expectations as what I am able to offer here, because that poor guy's working 7/12s and rarely sees his family, and he's doing the very best that he can in a league where there's going to be a lot of gameplay issues because you have a lot of guys that are new to Madden playing there, and because they're new to Madden and they're playing there, it's going to take some time to get their gameplay up to snuff, and it's a catch-22, because if you start letting guys go, you have more CPU teams, guys get tired of playing the CPU, guys leave because you're playing the CPU, and look, I'm doing everything I can to get them full, but I just ask for more patience from our OMFL guys who are playing there. But Chaotic tells us in the OMFL 2, they're in week 8, the top teams are the Browns and Ravens, each of them with 6 wins. Playoff races are a little tight, each division leaders only having a 1-game advantage. The top-rated passing attack through week 8 is Kansas City, led by Mr. Patrick Big Game Mahomes with 1,611 yards. His top 2 targets are Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. 528 yards for Watkins, 505 for Tyreek Hill. Both of those guys are in the top spot, and they do currently have some openings in both the TFL, the NBC, and the OMFL 2. The OMFL 2 has 9 openings, so if you're listening to this, we'd love to have you come help us build that league, and as teams open up in the OMFL, we do dip into the OMFL 2 and offer the top guys, and when I say top guys, I mean activity, FPR, not wins, to come up to the OMFL. And then finally, the NBC, my buddy Pootie T over there, the Lions remain undefeated through 15 weeks. So that's one thing we're not seeing here in the OMFL is those undefeated teams. Like even our top teams have 2 and 3 losses, which I think speaks to the competition here. But the NBC Lions are undefeated through 15 weeks. 6 teams in the AFC are tied with a record or just 1 game separating them. And they're battling it out for that last wild card spot. And the Jay is 400 yards short of 2,000 rushing yards with just 2 games left to play. So they may have a 2,000-yard rusher there in the NBC and some really, really good teams. So that's going to bring us to the end of that segment of an update from all the other leagues that are out there. And it's fun to see what the other leagues are doing and just kind of see the updates from the other leagues and see exactly how other leagues kind of run things and exactly what they're all about. And man, I can't believe it. Here very, very soon, we're going to be into the playoffs here in the OMFL, and yeah, it's just going to be really crazy to see how these races are going to end up. And again, I think it speaks volumes to the competition, maybe not so much to the parity, but the competition that you're going to, minimum, you're going to have 10 wins to make the playoffs here. And even though we've got some really great players, those top teams have lost some games. Whether it's the Seahawks losing to the Rams, the Falcons losing to me, right? Like the top teams have lost a couple of games there, and that makes things really, really interesting and makes you excited to see what's going to happen whenever the playoffs do get here. So let's go ahead and put a bow on the show. Dawson, give me your closing thoughts on Week 13 here in the OMFL.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody that's listening, play good, clean, schedule your games. One thing I want to add, I guess, a plug for Gold Sheet. Looks like right now the top earner is Dritch for the Falcons at 1,700, and then we got a tie for second and third place. DBL and Dwayne is both at $1,200, and then we got Most close at $1,100. So it's still a little tight race. And I guess we talk more about this going forward. And then once we get season 2 ready to get more guys active. But yeah, it is week 14 is going to be a good week for everybody around the league.
Yeah, I love the Gold Sheet. I'm so glad you took that over and run that. We've been doing it for many years now, and it's just one of my favorite things that we do. It's an easy, fun way for you to earn incentives. It gets you to buy into the games and maybe even watch a couple of games that are being played. Speaking of that, we did our third commentary game this past week. It was a really fun game. It was fun to do. Maniac was able to hop on with me and do it. So that's in the archives. Make sure you go check that out. We're going to try to do a couple more of those, especially the bowl game. We'll do the OMFL bowl game for season 80, but we'll maybe try to do a couple of other games as much as we can. Lots of content that is out there. One of the things that you brought up that I just want to reiterate, I need to figure this out with you and probably maybe make that on our list this week to figure out, but I think we're going to figure out a way to either in the Gold Sheet, or it's probably not going to, I don't know, it's either going to be incentive plan or Gold Sheet. It's going to be in there somewhere. Maybe it's both. I don't know. We got to figure this out, but we're going to allow you to be able to win one dev trait that can increase. And we got to put some things around that. We don't want to allow you to get to a superstar. We don't want to allow that. If we let you do it, we may do that type of thing where once one dev trait's been increased on a player, that player can never have dev traits increased ever again. So like there's some things we got to figure out, but we're definitely going to allow that because I know dev traits can't be purchased, which I do enjoy, but it does feel a little limiting to a few owners. So we may add that either into 2 spots or 1 spot. I don't know. We'll figure it out this week, and we'll make sure that we'll announce it.
Just want to cut you out. There is one prize that we do have for this season. And is one, you can put one normal dev player can be improved to quick, and it's only a one-time deal. Owner can't consistently win this every year. And it's not quick to star to superstar. It's only normal to quick. So and it's only a one-time deal. But yeah, that is one incentive we did change for the season, for the first season.
Well, there you go. So since that one's already in the Gold Sheet, well, you and I can kind of put our heads together and figure out how to put it into the incentive plan and exactly like what it can be. But we're definitely going to add that, but it just gives you more opportunities to get involved. I know the NBC implemented, there we go, there's the word I'm looking for, a incentive plan this year, and because of that, I've seen so much content from them. There is a zillion articles out there, so go check out the content. I just want to give a shout out to our latest gold or platinum member, Crazy B-Man. He gave a donation last night. We're still looking to collect donations to save up so we can get our Daddy Leagues page redone. It's $150. So it is a little bit of a purchase. We're almost there to be able to do that. I'm hoping that we can do that at least maybe by the beginning of next season or towards the middle of next season at the worst. But we never stop looking for platinum members. If you want to donate to the community, if you're in the OMFL, you become a platinum member. It comes with some perks and some things that you can do. But it's been a great season so far. It feels good to have the sliders figured out. I will say where the sliders are, they're set except for one. There's one, I think we figured all the rest out. I think we have pass rush about where we want it. Look, yeah, you have those games where there's no pass rush, but we also have games where there's 8 sacks, right? We just seen one game recently where there was 8 sacks in it. So, there's a little bit of both. That may get like a 1-point tweak, but it's pretty much where it's going to be. Everything else I feel good about. Pass reaction, pass coverage, all of that feels really, really good. The only one that is set in the test franchise that I'd love to get some feedback on is catch. Our drops have been extremely high this year. They don't seem as bad the last couple of weeks, even though we haven't changed anything. But I'm testing an idea where the pass catch is set really, really high in the test franchise, but you still have drops. Not everybody doesn't catch everything, but they catch the passes that you expect them to catch, especially like those little sharp passes where they get hit, immediately and drop balls that are right in their hand that NFL players would hang on to for like a 3 or 4 yard gain. So if you guys get time, test them. Give me your feedback. We may try that for season 81, but where we are is where we're going to finish the rest of season 80 with, again, maybe one more little tweak into season 81 coming around pass blocking, maybe one more point tweak to allow a little bit more more pass rush, and then maybe that catch slider. So it feels good that we have those set, and now I can just worry about playing football and actually winning some games. So it's been really, really great. Dawson, thanks for waking up early on a Sunday morning and joining me. I've got a Pelicans event I got to go off to, and then off to work on Monday. So lots of fun games coming up that I'm looking forward to. I love watching these games, and hopefully we can find some games to have some commentary with. So Dawson, thanks again for all the leadership here in the OMFL, for my buddy Dawson and all the guys here. Thanks so much for tuning in with me. We will see you next week. Have a great week. God bless. Peace.
See ya.